you? Why should I choose you? And they're looking for evidence. We'll come back to the evidence point in a minute. But what I haven't got there is a person sitting down, scoring all the details of your proposal. That may be going on. The purpose of the proposal or bid document itself is to maximize its score. It's to get you through formal processes. And of course, the pricing has to be right. But the decision maker is looking at one small, brief document. Mostly today, I'd certainly say in the West, we're starting to see a slight movement towards people viewing them on devices, but most decision makers I see tend to view it on screen, on paper. And they just have a quick look at it. They're not going to pore over it. They want to scan it. They want to read it quickly. And if you think about it in a competitive situation where there's maybe 3 competitors left at the end of a series of rounds of bidding processes, these decision makers are going to look at 1, 2, or 3 executive summaries. They're not going to sit and read them. Yes, they're important decisions, but they're not going to read them word by word. They're going to scan them through and say, oh, okay, I've got the messages from that one. That's great. Then they can satisfy themselves that they've got it. So decision making, you'd think it's very structured, very formal. We do all this scoring, all this stuff. It's just someone sitting there going, I don't know. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, I got it. I know who I'm going with. So, what has the person that's made the decision thought? Firstly, the thing to understand about decisions, the human brain is driven towards making emotional decisions. All of us, every single one of us on this call, makes most of our major decisions emotionally. We buy things because we like them. So any big decision, we tend to be driven by emotion. Emotion is a very complex thing. We don't have time in this short session to go into it in great deal, but do some research on your own. Decision making is an emotional process. Where we choose to live, the car we choose to buy, the partner we choose to spend our lives with, they're all emotional decisions. And the same decision making process comes into business as well. However, whereas in our life, we can say, well, I chose this partner because I love her or I love him. You can't really say, well, I want to pick that supplier because I like them more than the rest. So as a decision maker, what I'm looking for is supporting information to my emotional decision. This is called the logical justification. So I make an emotional decision and I justify it for logical reasons. What I need is the link between my emotional decision and my logical justification, the supporting information. So to help me in my decision-making process, I need supporting information to my emotional decision, which I can use to justify my decision to others. So what helps with the decision for the decision maker? The executive summary. Decision makers are not going to read the proposal. They don't have the time. These people are too busy to spend their time sitting scoring proposals. If you write the executive summary for them, they will read it, probably. Scan read it. Often these times even decision makers are saying, I don't even want to read a short document. What I want to do is have the team come in and make a short presentation. So the executive summary could be in the form of a mini presentation. But it's something that's a summary of the reasons why they should choose you. It's not a summary of the proposal. So you should write the executive summary, given the capability to do so. There are many situations, and we're seeing a lot of this, again, certainly in the UK, US, some parts, mostly Northern Europe, that customers are saying, please submit your bid through this portal, and there is no place to put an executive summary. So how do I submit one? Well, what we're going to say is you should write the executive summary and then break it up and distribute its messages across the proposal. Because ultimately, the decision maker is going to get a summary from somewhere, because they're not going to read the whole proposal document. And if you haven't written it, then they're going to ask someone in the scoring team, in the proposal assessment team, to actually prepare a summary for them as to why they should select you or someone else. And what you need to do is put that information in places, so at the beginnings of sections, where the person who's been asked to write that summary can construct what you want them to construct to get to the decision maker. So executive summary is a very important document. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to assume that you're allowed to submit one. And here I've just got a, excuse me, a short executive summary. And I'll talk about some of the attributes of executive summaries. So what is a customer-focused executive summary? Well, firstly, it's short. The recommendation from Shipley is no more than 1,000 words. It's written about them, not about us. It is more graphic rich than a proposal. In a proposal, we'd recommend probably 2 graphics every 3 pages. In the executive summary, probably 1 graphic per page. Why? Well, because it's going to be scan read. So the other thing that Shipley's taught for years, this applies on paper, different on screen. There's no really valid research on screens yet that I can cite for you. But we use the format that you can see on that page there, where it's what we would term 1/3, 2/3. So there's white space to the left-hand side. That allows the text on the right-hand side to be scan read very easily. A reader can read text that's about 60 to 80 characters wide, depending on the font, without moving their eyes from left to right. So it can be scan read, and that is how we know it's going to be read. So customer focused, it has a structure. It gives them navigation aids that makes it easy to read. So let's have a look at some of the elements of it. Firstly, it's got an informative title. This is an example. You're not going to understand the context of this unless you've seen one of Shipley's EATS case studies. That was just an example document I wanted to put up there, so I can just talk you through the construct. So EATS is the Albanian air traffic system. It's an air traffic system that a company called Laurent is bidding for. Revenue from EATS without the need for investment from Albania. That's more interesting than the pure title, executive summary. It then has the theme statement. If the reader was to only read the first sentence, the Albanian government will be able to regenerate the island's economy with income of over 10 million shells, that's Albanian currency, per annum as a result of deploying a wireless virtual ATC system. If they were to only read that first sentence, does it give them a justification for choosing you? Well, if you're allowing them to generate 10 million shells of income and no one else can, then there's a justification. They don't need to read the rest. But let's assume they're not 100% convinced by that. They'll scan to the next one. So down the page, and we'll look at the format again later, but what we've listed is the 3 things that the customer has said to us over time or said in their request for proposals document that are their hot buttons, the things that keep them awake at night, their major issues, their major business concerns. So they're buying an air traffic control system, but they want it to maximize foreign exchange. They want it to create jobs. They want it to be environmentally sound, but not damage the beauty of the island. Those are the top 3 things that the customer said. They're referred to as the hot buttons. So within the first page, so just literally from there, they can scan down and they get to the hot buttons. Then we use those headings, those hot buttons as headings. Why? Well, if I'm one of the decision-making group and I'm concerned about foreign exchange, I want to be able to navigate to that quickly. I want to find the information all in one place that relates to that. Whereas if I'm another one of the decision makers that's concerned about jobs, I want to be able to find that somewhere. And so how we group the information becomes important. So we use headings and say everything under this heading is about maximizing foreign exchange in a minimum payback time. And one of the things that that's doing is putting the value proposition forward, one of the first graphics. Just give you a second to look at that. So we've got a graphic that shows the income or the revenue, and we've got what Shipley refers to as an action caption. What conclusion do you want the reader to draw from this graphic? The project will make profits within 18 months. If there's a graphic on a page, the reader will go to that graphic and they will read the text associated with that graphic. Therefore, we want that to be informative. Before I go into the 4-box, Sam, is there anything in the chat box you want to pick up from?
No, in the chat box, one question that did come through to me is, who should start the exec summary?
Okay, first draft of the executive summary should be prepared by the person that knows the customer the best. Now, in many cases, that will be the person in the sales role, but not all cases. If you are an incumbent supplier, it could be that the person delivering the existing project, your existing project manager or program manager, is the person that knows the customer the best and is effectively leading the sale. It's the person who has the greatest insight into the hot buttons of the customer, because this is what they want to read about. This is what customer focus is about. So we'd ask the person in the sales role to draft the executive summary first time. Now, of course, salespeople are not employed for their writing skills. They're employed for different skill sets. Some of them won't even know how to open Word. Fine, let them do their first draft in PowerPoint if they want to. Just say, just give me some pictures and give me some bullets. We'll take that away and we'll get it crafted and written by somebody who knows how to write. But the first draft should be produced by the person in the sales role. It should then be continuously reviewed. And we suggest reviews by competent, perhaps decision-making level people who can say, yeah, that's a convincing message, or no, this is more important than that, so I think we ought to put that there. What we're not doing is trying to write the perfect executive summary from the get-go. What we're doing is putting out, this is the key messages, these are the 3 topics, 4 topics that they're really interested in. This is what we're going to say about us and about our competitors, without naming competitors, of course, in that executive summary, and keep revising that. The executive summary is probably the hardest part of any proposal to write. It's written first, it's written during, and it's written last. It is the single most important part. Did that answer the question, Sam?
It did. Thank you, Tony.
So I mentioned at the beginning, Shipley has a tool, process, whatever you want to call it, that helps people be customer focused in their writing of executive summaries. If I just give you a blank sheet of paper and say fill it in, you'll just write, and no doubt the very first word on the very first page will be your company's name. Well, we're going to change that one right from the start. The very first word on the very first page should be the customer's name. That has a powerful impact of helping you write about benefits rather than about features. And do you know what? Customers are never delighted that you want to respond to them. They're never ecstatic about it. So the fact that you're delighted to respond to their RFP is just wasted words. So the Shipley 4-box says, how do you open the document? Well, we're going to start with the theme statement. We looked at that earlier. The theme statement was the one about shells in 18 months, just below the first informative heading. It's a statement that begins with the customer's name and talks about the benefit that they will receive in a way that they can receive it only from you. So it is what we would term discriminating. So I can use that sentence to justify choosing you. I will take the time just to share a short story. This is going back more than 10 years, less than 15 years. I was helping an IT services company bidding some services into the UK government for the National Health Service. It was an IT system, massive project. And I worked with a team, and we worked very hard over a weekend in one case. And we got what we thought was a very powerful theme statement put together at the beginning of the executive summary. And when it was announced in the Houses of Parliament, because this contract was over 400 million in value, it had to be announced in Parliament. The reason that was given why they selected my client was the reason we'd written. It was identical wording. They'd taken our theme statement and they used it to justify their decision. Now, I've only had one example like that that's absolutely 100% alignment, but the record in Hansard, which is the record of what's said in Parliament, and the record of the copy of the bid, shows you identical words. If you get the theme statement right, that's as far as the reader needs to read. Vision statement is then talking about them. What are they trying to achieve? What's their goal? What's their vision for this project? Yeah, maybe they're trying to buy something from you, but why? Explain that you understand why. This isn't the equivalent of our understanding of your requirements, which is another thing I see in executive summaries, where someone has gone to the RFP, taken the summary of the requirements and pasted it into the executive summary. Oh, great. Hey, look, we're going to choose someone who knows how to cut and paste. No, this is beyond that. It's customer. What are you trying to achieve with this vision? Box 2, statement of compliance. Simply, our solution is totally compliant with your requirements. That would be the ideal statement. If we can't say that, our solution is not compliant with your requirements, but will allow you to achieve your goals. That's equally positive, isn't it? Or our solution is not 100% compliant with your requirements. However, where we are non-compliant, we've explained the implications of those non-compliances, and they will not affect the outcome of the project. We want to give the decision maker assurance that we've taken into account what they're looking for, but just in a sentence or two. Then we introduce the hot buttons. You saw them. We had the 3 in the slide earlier: maximizing foreign exchange, high-tech jobs. Then box 3, we want to discuss each of those hot buttons. So actually, Shipley calls it the 4 box, but there's actually 3 box 3s if there's 3 hot buttons. There's 4 box 3s if there's 4 hot buttons, or 2 if you know. So for each of the hot buttons, we discuss the solution. Dear customer, you said you wanted. This is how our solution provides it, and the benefits that you'll get from this. Note your discriminator and trade-offs. This is, why is our solution different to our competitors' solutions? Don't leave it for them to work out. Tell them. Yeah, but we don't know our competitor's solution. If you don't know your competitor's solution, ask yourself, why are you bidding? Yeah, but. No, there's no yeah buts. If you just want to play the numbers game, bid everything that's out there and you'll win a percentage of them. But if you really want to win, you've got to understand yourself and your competition. Trade-offs, and maybe, if they're necessary, use as an example of how you can differentiate your product from a competitor. And then proof. So for each of the hot buttons, we're saying, this is what we provide. This is why you should believe us. You then put the value proposition or price. Most executive summaries don't allow you to put pricing information in, or most customers don't allow you to put pricing information in executive summaries. But you can put a value proposition in. Our solution pays for itself in 18 months. I haven't given you any pricing information. This project will provide an internal rate of return of 14% over 2 years. I haven't given you any pricing information, but I've given you something as a decision maker you want to know. Then summarize and next steps. This is the concluding part of the document, and this is coming back to the customer focused nature of a document. What do you want to do next? What do you want them to do next? We'd like the opportunity to come and present our key messages from our executive summary to your decision-making team. We'd like to discuss it with you. What do you want to do next? So 4-box structure, although box 3 is a cheat. if I'm going to ask somebody to draft an executive summary, I'll break it up into these component parts. And if it's going to a salesperson that wants to work in Microsoft PowerPoint, I'll say, okay, first slide, give me the theme statement. Second slide, what do you think they're trying to achieve? And so on and so forth. Then we'll take it away and we'll craft the document. So the 4-box structure is just a way of thinking. It's a tool to help you if you're drafting or finalizing an executive summary, something that's in a customer focused way, because the decision maker wants to choose you if you want them to. So that's my time. I have no idea what the time is, but Sam, any questions?
You're spot on, Tony. One question that somebody asked earlier, what if they don't know the hot buttons?
Then I would seriously say, why are you bidding? It's usually we don't know the hot buttons because we don't have the sufficient relationship with the customer. And that's one thing that globally is affecting us all. And even in these pandemic days, is getting even harder. How do you build a relationship with someone virtually where they trust you enough to share with you what their major concerns are, what keeps them awake at night? And the earlier you are in their buying process, in their decision-making process, the more likely they are to share them. Once the RFP is out, is on the streets, usually there's rules that you can only talk to this person in purchasing or this specialist or something like that. And that person will not necessarily have an insight into what it is that's keeping the decision makers, the people who are funding this project, awake at night. So if you don't know, I would seriously say consider no bidding. I'll share with you another piece of factual research. Again, this happens to be another ICT services company, pan-European, probably global, but pan-European mostly. We did a lot of work 2 years ago analyzing their customer base. And well, the project took about 6 months, but in the end we came up with, there were only 37, that sounds a lot, but there were only 37 hot buttons that they could possibly address. And some of those were so close, I'd say there were 30, but we ended up with 37 possible hot buttons, things that their customers, and that's all customers, commercial, government, international, whatever, there were only 37 things that their products and services addressed. And that, interestingly, between the sales team, and the sales team was some 40, 50 people, I guess, something like that. They knew all of them. What they didn't know was which customers had which ones. But once they'd got that definitive list, they were able to have more focused conversations with their own individual customers and say, these are the reasons why people buy this. Are these things that are of interest to you? So they were able to have shorter, more focused conversations. It's not an ideal answer by a long way, because you can sort of project hot buttons onto a customer accidentally like that. But yeah, again, I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, Tony. And any other questions that come? While we're waiting for some more questions to come through, we're very honored to have 2 members of the APMP India governing board. I'd like to call out Sunil Agarwal, who's the chair of APMP India. Thanks for joining, Sunil. And go ahead, Sunil.
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much. Hi, Tony. Thank you so much for this excellent and refreshing course on executive summaries. I had a couple of questions, but I couldn't find the chat box. I don't know what happened to my chat box on the Teams. My Teams got updated today, and suddenly there is no chat box here. So the question which I had, Tony, was now there are many government opportunities where we submit different volumes to different people. So you submit technical volume, and even the technical volume has 4 parts which go to different owners. So would you suggest writing different executive summaries for each of the sections, or attaching the same executive summary to each of the sections so that each of the decision maker who reads that particular volume gets to read the executive summary?
I would personally plan to write 4 different executive summaries if I had 4 different sections.
Yep.
There are occasions when you want to, I can think of one that we did, a major construction project, where we wanted, there was one overriding hot button, and that made it into all of the executive summaries. So actually they all looked like they started the same, but they actually had different executive summaries.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. That was what I was thinking, and just wanted to ratify that assumption was right.
There's a reason you're chairing the APMP, Sunil.
Thanks, Sunil. Appreciate that. And I'd like to call out Abhijit Majumdar. Thank you very much for joining us, Abhijit.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Tony. And I don't know, Sam, if you have known that Tony was my assessor during my professional level assessment in APMP. So I think this was a great session, Tony, and a very refreshing one, clearing back all the lot of clutter which gets accumulated in the process of writing proposals. Obviously, you get back, once you go back again through these sessions, you think, okay, you get to think, okay, this is where exactly I was going wrong, and this is where exactly what I need to change. So thank you so much for refreshing back.
You're welcome. You're really welcome.
So we have 2 more questions, Tony. One question comes through from Martin, where many organizations are in this COVID time following a bid to submit strategy rather than a bid to win. Any comments on that? And after that, Shefali, please feel free to ask your question after Tony answers this.
So bid to submit strategy, and I'm going to get very personal here. This is one of my personal issues, hot buttons, if you like. If you're not planning to win, then I always think, then what else could we have done with that resource if we hadn't expended it on this? So from an internal perspective, could we have done something better with that resource? I've often suggested to people, rather than submit the bid, why don't you give that budget to the salespeople and say, spend it to get to know the customer. We're not going to win this time, but let's make sure we win next time. The other thing that and I've seen this, is I heard it so many times, well, we need to be submit because we need to be seen. It's how we get ourselves known to the customer. Yeah, what a great idea. Let's bid. Let's get known as losers right from the start. If you're not going to win, then you become known as a loser. And the trouble is, the customer or prospective customer will make up reasons why they didn't choose you. It won't be anything particularly great because they'll try and make up logical reasons, but actually the decision to not choose you was actually emotional. And that's why we often get these incongruent debriefs when we lose. It just doesn't make sense because they've made things up. Well, you didn't comply with this, but we did. Oh, we didn't find it, but you're getting known as a loser, and that stays with you, and that's a real problem. And I was with a company 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago, who bidding into South America, and they bid, and immediately they got a feedback from the customer that said, we didn't select you last time. Why do you think we'd select you this time? And so why are you bidding? So I'm not a big fan of bid to submit, bid to get known strategies. There are cases for it, but if you are going to do that, in a way, you have to do even better bids. What you want is that customer to say, do you know what? I know we'd already decided that we're going with these people, but if we hadn't, this one who's submitted to us would be the one that we'd choose definitely. You want them to think that they've missed something by not selecting you. I don't know if that was, again, a very long answer to a very short question.
Thanks, Tony. And Shefali, if you ask your question, after that, we got Karthik Krishnan. Shefali, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hi, Tony. Thanks.
Hi,
Thanks for
Shefali.
this session. And like Sunil, I also am not finding the chat box window on my team. So, good opportunity to talk. My question is related to Sunil's question, where he has asked about appending the executive summary with different volumes, but technical. We've seen that many times we have the technical and commercial submission as separate documents. So, in which case, the recommendation obviously from Shipley is that we do have to have the executive summary on the price and the commercial proposal. Any comments on that, Tony?
Yes, I'd still say exactly as for Sunil's, Shefali, I'd say each should have an executive summary. They may be briefer executive summaries. They may be only a page or two rather than 3 or 4 pages. But I keep them focused. What I want, if you go back to my second or third slide, we've got to be able to get to that decision maker. So the person at the top of the commercial chain, the person at the top of the technical, top of the program,